marriage from the brink of destruction back into a healthy bond. That's what police officer Brian Noller and his wife wanted to know after 8 years of post-traumatic stress disorder threatened to tear them apart. Watch how Cityline's Dr. Karyn Gordon counseled them back to happiness.
And I remember Dr. Karyn Gordon saying, you know what? If you both want to fight for this, we can do this. Do you want to? And I'm going to give you time. Don't answer me right now. I want you to think about this, because this could be your out. You could say, no, you know what? I don't know that I can live up to those boundaries. And I remember thinking, God, what's he going to say when we get there? And thank goodness he said he wanted to, and then I knew I wanted to. And I felt obligated because we have children. We do argue more, but we don't argue in front of our kids. We text argue a lot. So we'll get it out during the day, and by the time he comes home, it's settled.
And that was one of the things I had to come to realize as well is, look, you know, if you're going to discuss things, then the only way to get those out is to discuss them. You know, it's not going to happen by telepathy. It's not going to happen through osmosis. You need to open your mouth and, you know, use your words. You know, you went to law school for a reason, so you've got lots of big words in there. You may as well use them.
And one of the things we unearthed with Dr. Gordon is when I started having children, I became a mom. That was my role, and I forgot that I was a wife. And Dr. Gordon said it happens a lot, but they're like children. So they don't stop needing that attention. But he didn't get it. My infant got...
Men or police officers, or you gotta be more specific?
It's like both. I really had no time. And she said, but really, that your priority is your husband. Second priority is your children. And that hit me like a truck. Because it's not what I learned, and it's not, I didn't agree at first, but now I do, because she said, how are you going to teach your children how to be parents, how to be spouses, if you're not showing them?
So many nuggets in that.
So many nuggets.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to discuss in that. So we want to talk about the things that couples need to discuss.
Yes.
And I know we're talking specifically about PTSD, but this can actually be seen in a wider context for so many marriages out there. Your first point is you need to talk about boundaries within a marriage.
Yes, and this is a wonderful story, how people can be in a marriage, they think that there's no hope, they're basically in this hole, there's no way they can get out, and I'm telling you, there is hope. There is hope. This is a wonderful story of two people that said, we are committed, we want this to be better, we just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so the key is really to get the right help. And so the first thing is to talk boundaries. There, you know, if I was to think about two things that really is going to make a relationship thrive, it's know how to talk boundaries and know how to deal with conflict. If I'm just going to like boil it down to two. And boundaries, for a lot of people, they don't even think about it. But this is a really, really core piece in terms of actually how to start and talk about boundaries.
Just to give you a sense of how much maybe we don't think about boundaries, Kathy is out in the audience right now. And Kathy, you said, Dr. Karyn Gordon said something about boundaries that just hit you. What was it?
Well, I remember thinking, we're educated people. I had never thought of that. We'd never discussed boundaries. I didn't know there had to be a conversation that, you know, this is how far you can take things, and I just didn't know that's something I had to talk about. So when she told us that, we actually had to, you know, kind of weed everything out and say, this is how far you can take things. This is how far I'm comfortable with.
I love that. I love having that discussion. And what things are you talking about when it comes to boundaries?
I mean, literally, you could look at a marriage and there's like hundreds of boundaries. You can talk about communication boundaries. Is it okay for a person to be talking to their exes? That would be one particular boundary. You can have a physical boundary in terms of, you know, whether or not you have like a door closed into it, if you're going to the bathroom, for example. You can have like physical boundaries. You can have financial boundaries in terms of who actually pays for what. Think of a boundary as kind of, it's the line between one person and another person. And if that line is not very clear, people kind of crowd over each other, and you know you're kind of crossing a boundary when you feel anxiety. Anxiety is like this flag going that somebody is kind of invading my space. And so you can even have communication boundaries in terms of in-laws, like when you have a conflict with your family. Who does, what's the line? What's your job and what's my job? And so literally, if you actually study almost every single conflict that happens in couples, it usually is a boundary issue.
And it's a confusion about boundaries.
It's a confusion about boundaries.
It hasn't been discussed.
It hasn't been discussed. No, this is your job. No, this is my job. No, whose job is it? Okay, well, and all of a sudden people kind of get locked in. And so again, that's why I'm saying boundaries is probably the root issue that has to get talked out, and then you need the communication skills to properly talk it out.
But are you saying you literally have to sit there with your partner and go through, okay, when it comes to communication, I don't want for us to get in a fight for you to walk out the house.
Yes.
So you have to discuss those things, and it has to be like, I need for you to stay, even if you need to be in another room, because it's important for me that we work this out before the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what you do is you use whatever the conflict is, you use it to actually think, what boundary do we actually have to figure out? And that's why it was so powerful for them. They had never thought about it.
Listen, it goes on and on and on, and you're dealing with a lot of marriages, so we will keep dealing with this topic on the show. Thank you, Karyn.